This is Office Hours with SIU System President Dan Mahoney, a monthly podcast that explores what's happening in and around American higher education. And now your host, SIU System President Dan Mahoney.
Thank you for tuning into Office Hours. I'm your host, SIU System President Dan Mahoney. In this podcast, we explore what's going on in the world of higher education, including some of the major issues and challenges. And in this episode, we're diving into a topic that's generating both excitement and serious reflection across higher education and many other industries, artificial intelligence. Now, I started at a university over 40 years ago, and the world has changed pretty dramatically since then. When I got to campus, there were no personal computers. We all were using typewriters and writing out all of our assignments. And even by this time I started as a faculty member, a little over 30 years ago, I had no access to email, no internet. None of those things existed. And obviously that's changed pretty dramatically. We were still using the old overhead projectors before we made the transition to PowerPoint. I remember instructing one of my fellow faculty members how to use PowerPoint. She's told me, Dan, I really like FHT, which I was like, what is FHT? She said, formerly high tech. That was the overhead projector. That's way formerly now. And then we moved to more online classes, and for some of us that happened much earlier than others, but when the pandemic hit, we all had to learn to teach online, and in fact, over the last 5 years, I've taught 7 classes, all of them online, which was a new experience for me. And just as I'm starting to think I get a handle on teaching online, now comes along AI, and I'm trying to work on my fall syllabus and work with my co-instructor about what is our policy, how do we incorporate that into our class, and really help the students use it in an effective way. And the reality is, much like each of these previous advances, the rapid growth in the use of AI is not something we in higher education can avoid even if we wanted to. AI is transforming many industries, and for us, it's quickly reshaping how we teach, learn, conduct research, and even operate across universities. Personally, I've learned to embrace the evolution of technology and recognize we must keep adjusting and thinking about how AI can assist us in our work. As the president of the SIU System, I'm proud to say we've been actively assessing how we are integrating AI and what we're doing and where we can grow. So today I'm joined by 2 guests who are at the forefront of this work at SIU, leading a system-wide AI task force. We have Dr. Mary Hayek, Dean of the School of Business at SIUE, and Dr. Frank Liu, Dean of the College of Engineering, Computing, Technology, and Mathematics at SIUC. I will start by saying we are doing a number of different things already. We have courses that are teaching about AI. We've launched AI-integrated clinical simulations. We've secured millions in external research funding related to AI. And really now we're exploring many of the ways that we can work together across disciplines, across universities in the system to incorporate AI. But we're also looking at some of the potential challenges or hurdles. How do we make sure that everyone has equitable access to AI tools? How do we help our faculty and others who have maybe not grown up in this world or aren't as comfortable learn how to incorporate AI into their classes? So today my guests will help us kind of dig deeper into that. So I welcome Dean Hayek and Dean Liu to Office Hours. And so thank you both for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So let's begin by learning a little bit about each of you. What sparked your interest in artificial intelligence, and how has it become part of your academic leadership? And I'll start with you, Dean Hayek.
So my interest in AI started probably 3 years ago. I had a former student of mine over for dinner with the family, and he was talking to me about AI and how it was going to change the world. He claimed that it was going to be bigger than the internet. He's like, Mario, this is the biggest thing ever. And I'm like, come on, bigger than the internet. That's not possible, right? But it intrigued me. I was a little bit in awe, a little bit in fear. And so I started following all the research and literature that's out there about AI for business and for education. And the more I read, again, the more I was in awe and the more I was afraid. And I was curious, how does this work? And this thing is moving faster than anything else we'd ever seen. So I started taking some courses, some seminars, certificates, and that was my introduction to AI. I was wondering, how can we make businesses better using AI? Right? And on the education side, how do we make education better? How can we use AI in education? And my feeling is that this is going to change business. It's going to change education. It's going to change all disciplines.
Thank you, Dean Liu.
Okay, good. I started working on AI since I work on my PhD dissertation. My PhD dissertation is about specifying and analyzing imprecise software requirements using fuzzy logic, which is a type of AI technique. Since then, I have been continuously working on AI. For the past 15 years, I have been working on intelligent recommendation technology using AI, and also intelligent augmentation with social networking using AI. So recently, we published the article with my students. Last year, actually, I received the best paper award on this topic. So the AI is advancing so quickly. I told my students, I have a computer science background. So I told my students, say, as long as the computer does not figure out how to do programming, you guys will have very good jobs. The job market is good for you, right? At that time, I thought maybe it'd take another 30 or 50 years to get there because the program is so complicated, but the time is coming. So the AI is advancing so quickly. So that's how we see it. And then from the academic leadership perspective, I'm proposing a new degree program on behalf of my college recently. So we submitted a proposal we call the AI Plus program.
Well, I think a couple of points you both made are really interesting. I think a lot of times we think of AI as just all of a sudden magically happening in the last few years. But as you point out, Dean Liu, this has been coming for a long period of time, and a lot of people have been working on this for a while. But I think Dean Hayek also, when you talked about, in some ways, I talked about all those technological advances changing what we do. This seems like it may change it more than anything else. And that's, I think, what makes it both really exciting and sometimes a little scary at the same time. Talk a little bit, Dean Liu, about how AI is already showing up in the day-to-day work of students and faculty across our campuses, and how they're using tools and what trends you've seen that really stand out to you most so far.
Yes, the students, the faculty use in the daily operations. Students mainly use for the learning purpose. And as long as the use as learning tools is fine, but of course they don't want to just use a solution generated by AI tools and for the homework without any changes. That will be the problem. And the faculty use AI tools, ChatGPT, Gemini, and many other tools, and to assist with the teaching. So those are the good stuff. And the only thing we need to worry about is some students use the solution without even looking at it, and sometimes they don't even understand it, right? So computer science students these days can easily use the ChatGPT and the other tools to generate the programs, right? The solution. They just put the prompt, say, I need this program, do this, and ChatGPT will generate the program. If they don't even understand some of it, that's not good. But if they say, well, I want to solve some problem, can you help me to understand the program? And that's good. That's to actually learn from the ChatGPT and those kind of things. So we want this kind of thing happen in classrooms. It's basically help students learn, and instead of just copy and send the professor as the solution.
Yeah, Dean Hayek?
I echo a lot of what Dr. Liu is saying. So, most students have been using this, I think, way before we have. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we're catching up, I think, to the students, and that includes all faculty. I mean, right? Sometimes I have to task my own children how to use AI better. So they use ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, etc. We're using it to help us maybe with research, write papers, conceptualize models, coding, studying, brainstorming, etc. Those are all things that are currently being used. But that just scratches the surface of the capabilities of AI. But that's, I think, what most individuals are using it for. Also, publishers have incorporated AI into their platforms. For example, I know that Cengage MindTap has AI embedded into their platform. And they also use Bongo, so you can, you can ask students questions that were AI generated. They have to look into their camera and actually give their answers to the camera. And then there's an AI that will give them feedback and can even grade their responses. So these are different things that I think that, we're currently using. But again, we're just scratching the surface of the capabilities of AI.
And that's a good point, and that actually kind of leads me to my next question. There's a lot of ways that I think we all know that students, faculty, and others are using AI. But is there a project, program, something you've seen that uses AI in a way that excites you, offers some real-world impact that may be innovative and people haven't thought about? And so, Dean Hayek, I'll start with you.
Yes, I met with Dr. Sellenfrund from School of Medicine. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, I was blown away with what he's doing with AI, right? So he showed me that he's created some avatars, and these avatars help train their students how to gain the trust of patients, in the School of Medicine. And that just blew me away. I was like, okay, you've got to be, you have to share this with me. So he actually shared it, and I used it. And I don't know what to say. I mean, so could you imagine you're having a conversation, with this AI? One day I actually asked my phone, ChatGPT, I said, hey, can we negotiate? Can you teach me how to negotiate? And we did a back and forth on a negotiation technique. And then it writes everything down. So anyway, so the avatars, these AI avatars in the School of Medicine, I think is amazing. A second way that I'll mention, the School of Business and together with the Center for Predictive Analytics, Educational Outreach, and the Wedge in Alton, we're putting together a 5-course sequence for entrepreneurs on how they can use AI to enhance their business. So whether it's on the sales side, marketing, finance, projections, etc. So those are two things that excite me.
Yep.
Yes, I want to add that based on my personal experience, I have been working on intelligent augmentation with social networking. So we started the research about probably 15 years ago. So at that time, basically say, well, these days, the lawyer make a lot of money, right? And they're doing a lot of good business. So can we have a computer software do the lawyer job, argue in the courtroom, and do better job than the lawyer, right? So, and then I did the search at that time. I cannot find anything like that. I said, wow, maybe I could do it, right? So I started this line research at that time, right? So basically using the Toming, the augmentation model, using the data mining, text mining, and large language models to mine those texts, all those type of things. And then we produce 5 PhD dissertation and so on and so forth. I'm still excited by the project. Of course, we are not getting there yet, but I think that in the future, this is the way to go. So recently I was very, very excited by the ChatGPT, which help us. And in my research, I want to find out the stance between two arguments and also the polarity. So basically people have the partial agreement or disagreement. So in the past, we used our own data set and used the large language model from Google and find those stance and polarity between two arguments, right? And then, of course, our data set is relatively small. And recently we said, why not use the large language model, the produced by those guys, right? The ChatGPT and all those guys. So, well, actually, it turns out it's very, very good. And we use the data from the Reddit. And then we basically using the ChatGPT, the API, that's the programming interface, and then basically put the data in, and then ask the ChatGPT, say, hey, can you identify the stance and the polarity? It turns out the result is as good as we have, and sometimes even better. I was so surprised they can do things like that, And this is kind of thing that will have people eventually will develop that we call the lawyer, the AI lawyers.
Yeah, that's interesting because, again, you think about for some people, they may not have access to high-quality legal representation, and for them, that really could be a massive change and really bringing some sense of equity into the legal system. Yeah, it's exciting. I had not heard that one at all, so that's pretty amazing. Talk a little bit about, I think, Dean Hayek, you'd already mentioned this a little bit about some of the changes in the programs and curricula and things you're developing. Talk a little bit about some of the things you see happening, Dean Liu, and on program and curricular changes and ways we're trying to keep pace on the changes that's happening with AI.
At the SIU, actually, we did the inventory of the AI activities on campus. We found out actually more than 54 courses. We have more than 54 courses about AI. That's amazing. So, most people think that only a computer science program offer the AI classes, but these days many other disciplines starting doing that. And also we find out, we have 22, SIUC has 22 externally sponsored research projects on AI in the past several years. That's amazing. So the people use the AI in these applications in precision agriculture, right? And they're using AI for many other applications. For example, one faculty in my college using AI to detect the cracks of the track, of the railway track, right? So there's amazing things happening in our campus. So since we have this many classes, we also recruit several AI experts. So we are basically want to develop AI Plus undergraduate program, which we hope we could launch for next year.
All right, Dean Hayek.
So what we're doing with AI, I can speak for the School of Business, for example. So we started an AI committee about a year ago. And I just sent faculty to a Harvard training in AI in education just a few weeks back. And the purpose of that was we want to start incorporating not just AI, but we want to look across all of our curriculum in the School of Business. Well, a few things. One is creative problem solving, how to leverage technology, and interpersonal skills, right? So the leveraging technology piece is where we would fit AI. And this has to go across our curriculum, right? So I don't care if you're studying marketing, economics, entrepreneurship, finance, et cetera. Everybody these days has to understand how to leverage AI or leverage technology. So I want you to be an expert in your field, but you have to know how to take advantage of it. And these are things that have been told to us by our industry partners. Right. I mean, we have 6 advisory boards and they've all told us the same thing. You have to teach your kids interpersonal skills. That's a must, but they have to also know the technology.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. I think there's both the things that are really specifically we would identify as an AI class, but also thinking in all of our classes, thinking about it in a different way. And I often feel like in my classes years ago, I realized I'm not an English professor, but I teach writing all the time, and I can't not do that because that's important for students. And I feel the same way as AI is coming along, is how do I teach them how to use it effectively in my discipline? And I think we all kind of have to do that. So I think that's, again, for me, that's part of the exciting thing, is figuring out how I do that better. One of the, I think, concerns a lot when you talk about research and even within our classrooms is, how do we draw the line between that appropriate use of AI tools and academic misconduct, especially when it comes to things like plagiarism? I think, Dean Liu, you hit on that a little bit already, but Dean Hayek, I don't know if you want to start on this one.
Yeah, I think it's about, intent and transparency, right? I mean, if the intention is simply to, have AI do your work, then we're not achieving our goal as educators, right? It should be a learning partner, not a learning substitute, right? So when I teach entrepreneurship, I might tell students, I need you to do a business plan. But if all they did was just, take the rubric, take the instructions, feed it into AI, and give it to, I'll know. Mm-hmm. But if they're able to take that output and then continue to refine, right, the prompts, okay, well, how do you do a segmentation? Well, how do you do the forecasting? Well, did you use this technique or that technique with it? So if they continue refining, now it means that they actually understand, what's going on. So I do think that it's important. It's about intent and transparency. So I encourage the kids, could be grad school too, so I encourage everybody to use AI, but let's talk about it. Well, how did you use it? How did you improve on it? How did you help it do your research? How did you help it do the competition analysis? And what did you, and could you do it better? Right. And that's where, my experience comes in, right? Mm-hmm. That's the value added, where you say, hey, what did you think about this? You could have made it better like that. And so that's more or less the approach. That's where I kind of draw the line. And I think it's more or less the same in research, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if I just ask AI, here's a research question, do a literature review, tell me where the gap is in the literature, and come up with a solution to fill the gap. Well, come on, mm-hmm. That's not enough. But if you're actually able to push it and to refine it and to offer insights and thoughts, and mm-hmm. okay, well, now it becomes mine. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where it's a fuzzy logic, maybe like Dr. Liu said, right? It's a fuzzy boundary. Right. So, yeah.
Yes, I want to add that the AI is powerful tools for learning, and if students using it right away, it really can increase their learning capability and then really benefit from the learning from the AI tools. But one thing we don't want things happen is they simply just use the AI generated solution and submit it as the homework project or even dissertation or maybe thesis. Because generative AI these days can not only generate the text, right, the article, also can generate the video and many other artifacts, right? So they can do a lot of things for us. And I actually talked to one student. He showed me how the AI benefit. He benefited from the AI tools, right? So he basically said, well, I took the notes in classes and then I sent to AI tools and then asked the AI tools to basically produce the study guide for me, all right? Sometimes they say, oh, I could even ask the AI tool to generate the PowerPoint presentation based on the notes I took. So, and then those type of things will really help people learn, right? So also in computer science these days, the AI tools can generate the programs, right? So if we simply just submit those as a homework assignment and a solution, and then that student will not benefit from that. But if they say, well, I really want to learn how to do this, and then the AI tool can provide the guidance, and then they learn the technique, and finally they submit a solution based on their own work, and then they understand it. This actually is very, very similar to what's happening in industry, because these days professional programmers also use AI tools to help them to do programming. But the one distinction is they really understand what is the solution, what is the submit they use, because software need to be tested, need to be validated. Without those type of things, nobody can trust the software, right? And these days, the AI tools can use for example, self-driving cars. Mm-hmm. I'm not very sure that if I know the software is not tested, is not validated, and the developer don't even understand it, I will afraid taking the ride with that car, right? So that's exactly what we need to do, is make sure that whatever the final products they submit, they produce, they understand it 100%. They're 100% sure this is what they want, and then the 100% sure this is correct, and this type of thing.
Yeah, no, I think you both made a lot of good points here. I mean, one of the things I think about is we don't want to blindly use it. And one of the examples, and it's a small one, but it's something interesting in higher ed, is I remember, I think it was about a year ago, one of the universities used AI to read names at graduation, and they horribly butchered the names, and it was a complete disaster. I went to my daughter's graduation a month ago, and they used it, and it was flawless. So it's the kind of making sure you learn and use it in ways that are appropriate rather than just letting it generate and going with that. And that simply didn't work. The other thing I think that's interesting, and you kind of both hit on this in some ways, is we always talk about, we learn from our students as much as they learn from us. I'm not sure that's ever been more true. And that's what excites me with teaching right now is I think they will be teaching me in some ways and showing me how they used it to do the assignments in my class. But beyond the classroom, beyond research, AI can certainly have an impact on how we operate as higher education institutions, how we engage in strategic planning. What are some of your thoughts on the possibilities there? And I'll start with you, Dean Liu.
Okay, I think that just in like any other markets, right, higher education can benefit from the AI. From the student recruitment, from the program marketing to the retention to classroom teaching and to research, and many of those things tools can help us. Just give you an example. I often joking and say we should have precision recruitment. What does it mean by that is we really need to know a market, and the AI tool can help us to precisely say where you market the dollar should go, right? So if you simply say I'm going to spend this dollar just blindly, and then the result may not be as good as you want. But if we understand the market, perfectly, for example, if I say, oh gosh, I got state of Illinois, but I understand majority of students where they come from, which high school. So that way will help us, to really focus on this market, the summer market, right? So this is just a precision recruitment, and also for the retention. And if we understand that the problem, early on, and then that really will help students. So AI can do that for us because we already have a lot of data in our learning management system, right? So their grades, the homework, the grades of the projects, their attendance, everything, right? So we could use those data. We could use AI tool to help us basically provide a personalized the education. We could say, hey, this student have this kind of problem. This may come. So, we could take some preemptive action, not preemptive, proactive actions to help the students to resolve the issue even before it happen, And also we could use AI to basically help the students find the jobs. That's another thing. So there's a lot of way we could use AI in higher education.
Yeah, you see, I think it's going to completely change higher education forever, but drastically. So I mean, the role of a teacher, it's no longer, transferring information, right? I mean, now we've become facilitators, in a learning process, because now, in your hand, you have all the knowledge that's ever been created, right? So an AI knows more than I do, but I'm able to facilitate the experiences, for the students that they wouldn't get anywhere else. Right. So they could be sitting in their house learning just by themselves, but they can't get what I have to offer. I can engage them with industry. I can, give them examples and and networks, and they don't have that on their own. Second of all, higher ed, we're bureaucratic organizations, and as bureaucratic organizations, right, we have processes, right, and most of our processes, they're fixed processes, right. All of those can be replaced by AI. Right. So it's only the areas, it's only the gray areas, it's only the areas where you need judgment. Right. And so I think that the areas that need judgment, it's probably, it's probably a Pareto rule, right? It's probably only 20% of the areas require judgment, and everything else can be parsed out. Everything that's clear, it's black and white. It's like, this is obvious. All of that, and most of our processes, they're all mechanistic. So, in my opinion, higher education, it's gonna change forever.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it was interesting a few years ago, I tried to do some analysis about some of the predictions of why we were retaining students, not retaining students, and it was so incredibly complicated. I think it would have taken me a year to do. I was talking with some of our institutional research people. Now with AI, their ability to do it almost immediately it's just transformative in a lot of ways, which again takes out a lot of time and allows us to move forward with making those decisions and moving forward in positive ways that will help out our students. Last question I wanted to ask is, I know you've talked a lot with faculty, staff, students about AI. What has surprised you most from those conversations, either in what their concerns were, how they're using AI, kind of what have you learned from talking with others? And we'll start with you, Dean Hayek.
Yeah, I think that at the speed that they've moved from, fear to curiosity, I really do think that, and probably second of all, how far ahead our students are, ahead of us that they are. But those are two things, just like I started out by saying that I was afraid. I'm like, I'm not a tech guy. Mm-hmm. I'm not like Dr. Liu, and I haven't been doing this a lot. I'm a business person, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be left behind unless I start learning as fast as I can. What's this about? How do you use it? What can it be used for? And and I think the same feelings that I had, many people are having. I mean, there's always a minority that say, oh, this is just a fad. Look, this is no fad. It's not a fad. But I think that's every day that passes by, those are fewer. Individuals that are holding back. But I think that everybody's starting to get a little bit more comfortable in learning about AI. And the other thing is, yes, today's generation, this is their world. They're used to this speed. They're used to the way this works. For me, having an agent, it's difficult to understand. How do you create a workflow? My mind doesn't work that way, but theirs does, and so I think that surprised me the most.
Yes, I think that no matter how we view the AI, the usage, some people are very afraid, or some very, very, concerned, and other people kind of feel excited about it. And AI is here and will be here for a long, long time. And also the AI capability, you will see it's beyond people's imagination. People are talking about artificial superintelligence. What does it mean by that is, in someday, this machine might be smarter, much, much smarter than human being. And the AI can be used in a lot of the domains. And people are worried about that. Oh, wow, if you have the robotic soldiers and those guys have intelligence, super intelligence, how human beings deal with them, right? How to protect us, right? So there's a lot of things. So in this environment, so basically we have to adapt to this real world, and the AI is here and will be here for a long, long time. No matter we like it or not, it will be here. So in higher education, and faculty really want to get a little bit more knowledge about the AI and familiar with the tools, and students already use it a lot, and of course, they're worried about whether this is considered to be cheating or plagiarism, and we need to have some boundary. We need to have discussion, transparency, and all this type of thing will help.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. Quite often, I remember this even when online was coming along, and people were arguing whether it's a good thing or bad thing. I said it's coming either way. Let's make it a good thing. And I feel the same way with AI. It's coming either way. Let's find a way to make it a good thing and not a bad thing. So I want to thank you both for this conversation. And I want to thank you for your leadership in the SIU system and helping us find a way to make it a good thing and not a bad thing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Now I'm pleased to welcome Professor Pinckney Benedict. Professor Benedict is currently based at the SIU School of Medicine in Springfield, where he's a professor in the surgery department and chief architect of the school's AI/XR simulation facility. Before that, he spent many years as a professor of creative writing at SIU Carbondale and received several awards and fellowships for his work in that role, including one from the National Endowment for the Arts. His LinkedIn profile says he's an AI geek, but I'll tell you, he's the guy who's really led the way for us in AI at SIU. These days, he's working on innovative ways to use AI in medical education, from helping students practice key skills to simulating real-life patient interactions. So welcome, Professor Benedict.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So while the average person may not think of a humanities professor as being our leader in AI, you really have been out in front for SIU. Really, what got you interested in AI?
Well, I mean, I've always been interested in technological storytelling. I've always been interested, well, since I was a teenager, in games. And my first publications were actually text adventure games for the Commodore 64 back in 1985, if you can imagine such a thing. It's 40 years ago. So I've always had that interest. And then uh, I ran across an article in Wired magazine about a friend of mine who's a writer, a novelist. His name's Vikram Chandra. He teaches at Berkeley. And so I read the article, and it was about how he'd been a coder and then became a novelist, and how those two things kind of seemed the same to him in a way. And he talked some about, I think the current GPT at that point was like a GPT-2. And so he and I talked, and I went and began talking, typing at that time, to GPT-2. And it was very clear to me that there was not a human entity, but there was definitely an entity there, right? And that's what we look for as writers, as narrative artists of any kind. We look for a voice, an opinion, a point of view, a theory of mind. And from the very beginning, the GPT series of AI seemed to me to have that. And so I just began playing around with it. I tried to see how well it could write, and it does email really well, but it's still, I mean, the they're terrible fiction writers. And I've been working a little bit trying to change that. And I kept running across people I knew and liked and respected who, I mean, because most of the folks I knew, particularly back in the early days, now they're kind of horrified. They were dismissive, 4 years ago. So when I ran across people, and particularly artists whom I knew and liked and admired, who took AI seriously or were interested in what it might bring one day, even if it wasn't there yet. And I ran across a book called I Am Code, an artificial intelligence speaks poems by a guy named Simon Rich, he's a television writer, mostly comedy writer. He's married to a former student of mine who's a novelist and a nonfiction writer. And it's a book that he put together with some friends, autobiographical poems by an early AI, an early GPT model, an open AI model. And it's not a bad book of poetry, I think. I mean, it's and it is, it gets overhyped, right? They talk about it, this chilling vision of a time that will come when machines rule the earth, and so on and so forth. And it doesn't seem like that to me at all. It seems to me like kind of interesting poems. It's a performance, and clearly the AI is performing in order to please these young artists who are encouraging it and trying to get it to do something spectacular so that they can publish it. And that's really interesting, right? That a machine can perform. And since then, of course, everything has exploded, and the idea of an AI writing a poem or a song or creating a picture and now creating video, it's no longer surprising. But it has felt nice since those early days when it was very hard to get people interested, particularly artists, in this kind of thing. It has felt good to be vindicated that AI is as important as it is. Of course, we still don't know what the outcome is, but I live and breathe this stuff now. There's hardly anything I do that I don't do with an AI open, in the same way that I used to have a browser window open when I would write.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the number of different ways it can be utilized across multiple disciplines is something we were talking with our guests about earlier, and I think you hit on some of that. Talk about a couple of the uses of AI that you've been able to develop and that you're particularly excited about.
Right now, I'm working in medical simulation, and so we're doing things that we're not really replacing anything, but we're doing things that hospitals and medical schools already do, but that there are aspects of them that are difficult or expensive or just hard to get the infrastructure for. Actually, here I think it was back in the '80s. At SIU School of Medicine in Springfield, they developed a program called Standardized Patient Program, which is now everywhere. I bet there's not a medical school that doesn't use it, in which actors are given a situation and they're told, okay, you have this condition, you have these symptoms, you know this about your own situation, and so on and so forth. And actual human beings come in and talk to medical students and pretend to be patients, and the medical students pretend to be doctors, and right. So it's just theater, so what we're doing now is, in part, what we're doing is working on filling in some of the gaps in the standardized patients, right? Because the population that shows up to be standardized patients here, and I suspect elsewhere, is fairly monocultural. It tends to be people who are 50 years old or older. They tend to be people with English as a first or only language. And so we've been able to create, I was working on a guy named Ahmed Galal earlier today, who is a construction worker who moved to Pittsburgh from Egypt, and whose English is rudimentary, and he code switches between English and being fluent in Arabic. And so that's the kind of patient, of simulated patient, you won't be able to do in a conventional human standardized patient situation. But we can do that. We can create pediatric patients, right? Because they can't use children as standardized patients. And and how convincing would it be for somebody like me to come in and pretend to be a pediatric patient? But we can actually create child patients. They're fully conversational. They are, at the moment, we're working in 2D, but the part of the project is we're building 3-dimensional virtual reality or extended reality, augmented reality. We're building patients that will operate in convincing, immersive environments, right, where we can recreate to a certain extent the pressures of the emergency room, or the pressures of diagnosing someone and taking a medical history that you've never met before, who may be disagreeable, who may be reticent, right, who may be who may lie to you. So we can encompass all of that now, so students can run those simulations again and again and again. They can get good at things that are very difficult to get good at in the real world. We can train now. I hear stories. I'm getting to know a lot of doctors now, and I hear stories about doctors whose first experience of giving terrible news, right, the death of a beloved relative or something like that, was when they were a resident, and an attending physician said, "Get out there and tell those folks that that their mother has died," right? And that's a horrendous sort of traumatic experience for everybody involved. So we can practice that now, right? And of course, it will never be full preparation for that real emotional experience, but at least it's not just throwing people in the deep end. So those simulations are really, they're thrilling to me, and they're also we talk about what's a creative writing guy doing at a medical school, but they're creative writing exercises, right? It's creating these characters is so much like writing a play or creating a character in a short story. It's great. Like I love doing it, and I think we're building some really effective tools for medical school education.
Yeah, no, that's all really exciting. It's interesting you talk about, I know a lot of times they were using actually actors to do a lot of those patient simulations, but
Yep.
we're all limited on, we can't go from being a person from another country who's 60 years old to a 5-year-old. Like, we don't have that ability to do that. And so you have to hire so many people, and this allows you to do it in a really creative way. I think the interesting thing, too, is I'm just thinking about, some of the things I do in my role. I could probably use a few simulations and be able to run through things ahead of time when I'm delivering news. So it probably goes beyond even medicine, which I think is exciting as well.
Absolutely. I could have provided you with a simulated version of me, and you could have practiced this whole thing or just recorded it without me. Yeah. So, but no. There is no, and I know we're going to get to sort of larger implications of AI, but it's very hard to imagine an industry or a part of life that isn't affected by this sort of technology, and that we can't give ourselves safe spaces to practice the sorts of things we'd really like to be better at, but that we don't get to do very often. I mean, I have yet to convince the folks up here, but I mean, I think it would be good for the medical students to interview aliens and Bigfoot, right? I mean, just to show like that you don't know who the next person you're going to have a conversation with is, right? And you need to be prepared, not just for the polite patient who is compliant and cooperative, but just for an encounter you did not expect at all. So, but like I say, they kind of brought a crazy person on board, and they're having to cope with that now. But with any luck, I'll be making a simulated Bigfoot encounter.
Oh, look forward to that. So my last question is, and this is the big one, kind of like, what do you see some of the important future uses of AI in higher education beyond maybe even what we're doing at this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is not something everybody in academia loves to hear, but we're going to have to refactor entirely. Like, the university is going to have to be entirely refactored to count in things like, what I'm mostly hear now is, how can we catch people cheating on essays? Well, okay, I mean, but that's a finger in the dike, right? That's not going to stop the flood that is coming. And tools like Notebook LM that Google puts out for free, and it's a brilliant research tool, or Perplexity. These are amazing research tools, and particularly when you concatenate them, it changes. It's not just, oh, we can research faster, or, oh, we can cheat more when we research. It changes the way we encounter knowledge now. And so many of our pedagogical practices are going to have to change, probably in something like the way that one assumes medieval scholarly and academic practices changed when the movable type printing press came about, when Gutenberg made his great invention. And I think we need to be ready for that. We just need to steel ourselves to it and begin to investigate how we can make those changes with as little trauma as possible. The main thing that I hope will come about in the university, because AI makes this possible, is that we will become two-brained in a way that people certainly in most of our society, but certainly in academia, have not been for a long time, right? There are a lot of silos in academia, and and things get siloed within creative writing, or they get siloed within physics. And nobody is either wholly left-brained or wholly right-brained, but we encourage that kind of specialization. And what AI opens up is the opportunity that I can code now, right? Now, real coders will sneer at it, but I can write a pretty effective Python code, and a physics professor can write a pretty good poem or a pretty decent little scene, or make a good picture or a video, right? We can all do everything now. And very soon it is true, but kind of people, it's limited the number of people who are aware of that. But as that knowledge spreads, it means people aren't going to be satisfied to be slotted into, oh, he's a right brain guy, he's going to be in creative writing and code scares him and he'll only play other people's games, he'll never make his own game, right? Or computer scientist, how much better, right, will technology be when our tech overlords are also poets, right? Or when people who operate high intensity lasers are have songs in their heads too. Yeah. And I guess that sounds soft brain, that sounds silly. But it's absolutely what I hope for, that we can become, the left brain and the right brain can be unified in what the university will have to become and can become because of AI.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It always reminds me, I've read a lot about the most exciting innovations really come across disciplines, and it's when we're doing that, and as you're talking about, across our own brains, and this opens up all those types of opportunities. So, Professor Benedict, I want to thank you so much for your time today and talking with us about the exciting things that you're doing here at SIU.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I appreciate your inviting.
As we wrap up this episode, I want to acknowledge our production team on the Office Hours podcast, SIUE Edwardsville graduate student Solomon Amandi, and the SIU System leader for Marketing and Communications, Katie Sheehan. I also want to thank Jason Church at WSIE Radio here on the SIUE campus for his guidance in letting us use the studio for recording. And last but not least, thank you to all of our listeners for carving out time in your day to listen and maybe even learn a little bit.
Be sure to join us next time on Office Hours for further conversation with the people who work in and study higher education. Special thanks to Kara Baldus-Merriman and Daniel Merriman for the use of their composition Writer's Block as the Office Hours theme song. And thank you for listening to Office Hours with SIU System President Dan Mahoney.